Hello, I'm Bill Serban, Director of the Center for Advancing Teaching and Learning at the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse. This short video describes a model of basic learning that focuses on how people acquire new information. This is a simplified version of how learning scientists explain the acquisition of information and is intended as a general overview of how people learn new things. People are endowed with three important cognitive systems for learning. These are attention, which enables us to direct our mental efforts and to select and focus on information to be learned. Working memory, which enables us to maintain and manipulate information in conscious awareness. Working memory is often viewed as a mental space where we carry out conscious thinking. Third, long-term memory, sometimes referred to as permanent memory, enables us to store what we learn for long periods of time, sometimes our entire lives. There are different types of long-term memories. For example, we may remember our first grade classroom and what it looked like. This is a type of episodic memory, a recollection of a near or distant experience. However, remembering what our classroom looked like is different from remembering what we learned in the classroom, from reading material, listening to the teacher, and interacting with students. The knowledge we acquire through formal learning is in the form of semantic memory, or memory for meaning. For example, by 18 years of age, many people, especially strong readers, have acquired the meanings or partial meanings of 80,000 words. Those meanings are stored in long-term memory. We can think of long-term memory as a repository of all that we know. The term for this is prior knowledge, and as we'll see, our prior knowledge plays a key role in new learning. We can think of learning as the processes involved when we attend to new information, manipulate it in working memory, and then store a version of the information in long-term memory. Here's how it works. There is visual and auditory information out there in the world for us to learn. We read text, look at pictures, listen to a teacher or audio recording, or participate in a classroom learning activity. Learning begins with attention, as the student selects and focuses on part of the information. So as I read or listen, my mental effort is focused momentarily on some of the text or audio information. The selected information is now in working memory, in conscious awareness. Information in working memory is a bit fragile. Unless we actively manipulate it, we are likely to forget it in a few seconds. To learn the new information, two important processes take place that involve an interaction between working memory and long-term memory. We organize the new information and try to integrate it with our prior knowledge. Organizing and integrating mean we try to find a pattern or structure for the new information and connect it to what we already know about the topic at hand. This activity of organizing and integrating results in a new mental representation, the student's version of the new information. The new representation can be stored in long-term memory. Once in long-term memory, we may retrieve or recall all or portions of it. Of course, our recall may not be perfect, and we may fail to remember things we actually know. To make these covert cognitive processes more concrete, let's look at an example. Suppose you're a college student reading about the topic of schizophrenia for an introductory psychology class. You've heard people use the term in everyday discussions and in the media, but have never really thought much about it. Your prior knowledge may consist of little more than a few general associations with other broad concepts, such as insanity, psychotic, crazy, hallucinations, split personality. Now you are in a class where your goal is to develop an understanding of this idea and related concepts in a more formal sense. Your reading assignment introduces new and unfamiliar terms and concepts. In one passage about the characteristics of schizophrenia, you attend to and select parts of the information: hallucinations, delusions, disorganized thinking, lack of motivation, and paranoia. Some of these now occupy working memory, and some of those terms trigger awareness of prior knowledge. You have heard of a hallucination, but delusion is not familiar. By trying to identify how the different characteristics are related to one another, and by connecting the new ideas to what you already know, that is your prior knowledge, you start to form a mental representation of the material. After this first exposure to the material, you may retain some portion of it in long-term memory. Later, you have some recollection of the material. This can vary from a simple sense of familiarity with the concepts to very detailed recall of what you read. This brief episode is similar to what students experience in and out of class as they try to learn new material. To summarize briefly, students use their attentional resources to select new information to be learned. The selected information becomes active in working memory, where, if possible, they organize and integrate it with prior knowledge, forming a new mental representation of the material, which may be stored in long-term memory. As I said at the beginning, this is a general account of how we learn new things. It leaves unanswered many questions about learning, such as what happens when students are distracted and can't focus their attention, or what if students have no prior knowledge about the topic they're trying to learn? What happens if students do not organize or integrate their information with prior knowledge?